Hi, and welcome. I'm Dr. Kathy. And whether I was doing surgery in Guatemala, caring for infants, or teaching neonatal exams in Tanzania, caring for burn victims in Niger, teaching healthcare science in Korea, or traveling to Shanghai to learn Chinese medicine, I noticed the same thing worldwide. Patients needed better, healthier food choices. So how was I going to take all of my skills and talents as a doctor and former chef, turn them into one career? That's when I had an idea. I was going to swap one white coat for another. Welcome to The Doctor Is In, Cooking with Kathy. Hi and welcome. I'm Dr. Kathy, the chef. Today is the first day of our YouTube channel, and before we begin with our very first recipe, chicken, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do over the course of the run of this particular channel. I'm a physician, and I've traveled around the world practicing medicine, and I've noticed the same thing no matter where I go. Whenever a physician puts a patient on a diet that is even a little bit restrictive, they don't want to follow it. And I understand. I mean, come on. Who wants to hear you can never have a piece of cake again, or you can't have crispy fried chicken? Of course you're not going to follow that diet. So I've decided to take my former career as a chef and combine it with my current career as a physician and teach patients how to eat healthy, but still give them what they want to eat. Now, granted, it's not going to be Southern fried chicken that you're going to get in Birmingham, Alabama, but it's going to be a nice crispy fried chicken that I think you're going to like. So let's begin. Today's first recipe is going to be a crispy Southern fried chicken. And I'm going to make a really great mashed potato with a country gravy and some glazed carrots. So here's the first recipe that I'm going to do. It's a crispy Southern fried chicken. And I use the quotes for Southern because it's not really exactly what you're going to expect from Southern fried chicken, but it'll still be satisfying. Now, the key to a great fried chicken is the crispy outside, which we're going to get with a couple of little tricks, and a juicy center. Now, how do we get a juicy center and still keep it nice and fresh and bake it in the oven? Well, it's called a brine. Let me give you the recipe for a brine. It starts with 2 cups of water. And we're going to put that into a saucepan along with a 1/4 cup of salt, a 1/2 cup of sugar, and a whole bunch of seasoning. Now, I have a standard brine seasoning that whenever I use it, this is my base, and then I add different things depending on what I'm going to cook. I've got a bunch of parsley, I have a bunch of sage, and then I have some dried herbs. Here is some ground celery, here is some garlic powder, and here is some onion powder. And these are the basics of every single brine I'm going to make. Okay, and then we're going to bring that to a boil on the stove. While our brine is boiling on the stove, I'm going to give you a little background about why this is going to be really juicy. Nerd alert. I'm going to give you a little bit of those while I'm teaching you. When the cells within any tissue start to dehydrate or lose their water, they dry out. And that's why pork, beef, chicken can be very dry. What a brine does is it's a combination of that salt and that sugar and that water that soaks into the cells of the meat and plumps them up, and it stays there. Now, does it add a little bit of salt and sugar to your food? Yes, but just a little bit, and not enough that it's really significant for your dietary restrictions. But what it does is it plumps up those cells, and it makes those cells nice and juicy, and it holds that water in there, and that flavored water, which is why I do a lot of the spices and herbs within the brine, It's going to hold that flavored water into the cells. And this way, if you fry it, if you bake it, if you grill it, if you saute it, it's going to stay really nice and juicy. And that's why I like to brine chicken and pork. Okay, our brine has come off of the stove, and I'm going to put it into a bowl that's got 4 cups of cold water. And to that, I'm going to add 2 cups of ice. While this is cooling, I'm going to take a plastic bag and I'm going to take our chicken and place it into the plastic bag. I am using legs and thighs. I really like these. I think that they save the juice very well and they crisp up very nicely. And dark meat has a little bit more flavor than white meat. And yes, you did notice right. I am leaving the skin on the chicken. Now after touching raw chicken, make sure you wash your hands. So voila, through the magic of editing, our brine has cooled off and our chicken is in our bag and our hands are magically washed. I don't want to put a hot brine into my chicken because that will start the cooking process and that's not what I want. What I want is a nice cool brine to go into the chicken in order to open up those cells. If I were to put hot water in there, the cells would close right up. And that's going to defeat the whole purpose of a brine. Now if you have somebody to help you, that's great. I don't, so I have my bag open here. Let's hope I can do this really easily. And I'm just going to pour this into the bag. Ice cubes and all. That's fine. Here we go. Not too much mess. That's good. Now I'm going to seal this bag. And when I get close to the end, I want to try and get out as much of the air as I possibly can to make sure that that chicken is completely covered in the brine. There we go. Okay. And now this is going to sit in the brine overnight or 12 hours. Okay? And I'm going to put this into the refrigerator. So the next step in our chicken recipe, if you were making a good southern fried chicken, would be to marinate it for about an hour in buttermilk. Buttermilk sometimes is a little bit difficult to find and sometimes it's a little fatty. So instead of that, I'm going to use some yogurt. Now these are some homemade Greek yogurts that I made and you can see how nice and thick this is. So I want about, let's see, I would say about a cup of yogurt, so that's 2 of these, into a pan. Okay, and couldn't be southern fried chicken if there wasn't a little bit of hot sauce, right? So I've got my favorite hot sauce that I'm going to put into the marinade and a little bit of lime juice. This doesn't need any salt. We've got enough salt in the chicken already. Now we're just going to mix this together and we're going to get our chicken out of the refrigerator. We're going to drain that and we're going to marinate for about an hour in this mixture. And then it's ready to get crispified. Hi, welcome back. So that chicken that we had marinating in the spicy yogurt has come out of the refrigerator. Well, this is actually a chicken that I marinated before. The other chicken is still marinating. And I'm going to prep it in order to give it that crispy coating that we're going to use on it. So I'm just taking it out of the yogurt marinade and checking to see whether or not any of if it's got any extra skin on it. These are just thighs. The other ones were legs and thighs. Okay, very good. So I'm going to put this onto my pan that I'm going to use to cook this on. And this one has a little bit of extra skin. Okay, we don't want too much skin. This is where we can reduce some of that fat content. And I've got a little bit of skin on this one that I'm just going to pull off. Okay, pretty easy to do that. quite as easy as I thought. There we go. Okay. We still want some skin because that's going to add some of the crispiness. And it's also going to help us reduce the extra oil because the fat we need is going to be in here. Okay, I'm going to take this mixture out of the way in order to clean up the space. I've also been touching raw chicken and I want to give my hands a real quick wash. And voila, by the magic of editing, we are all cleaned up. Our chicken is sitting in our pan that we've got covered in some aluminum foil in order to keep it from sticking to the bottom. And then I've got all of the ingredients that I need to make this a crispy chicken. So it's not going to be a fried chicken because we'll want to get rid of some of that extra fat that happens when we fry our food, but I'm still going to make this a nice crispy coating. So in one bowl, a big bowl, I've got some flour, just regular all-purpose flour, unbleached. And then in this bowl, I have some starch, potato starch, corn starch, any type of starch you want. It adds a little extra crispiness to our particular process. And then I'm going to give this a real quick mix. And then to this, I'm going to add just a pinch of some cornmeal. Okay. And then I've got some paprika here that I'm going to add. Give myself a little extra flavor. Notice the cornmeal I've saved. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. Mix this up. And then crack some fresh pepper into here. Flour's going all over the place. Okay, very good. And I also want to crack in some sea salt. So I'm just giving this a nice grind in here. Not much, but again, you're controlling your own salt. And then mix this together. Now our hands are going to get messy. Many people do the one hand dry, one hand wet method. I'm going to go wash my hands, so I'm going to do both hands wet, especially since this is a wet prep. I left all of that excess yogurt marinate on here because that adds a lot of flavor. Plus, it's going to give me a place where my chicken can stick. So I'm just going to take this and coat it lightly in my mixture. And I sort of mix around here. There we go. Get rid of any excess. Put that down on my platter. Same thing with the rest of the pieces. Yep, my hands are going to get a little gooey, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm going to wash them off when I'm done. And the last piece. Now the bone is in this still. And the bone is in this for two reasons. One, it's less expensive to buy the bone-in pieces of meat than boned meat pieces. Additionally, bone-in will allow it to have a little bit more of a juicy flavor to it. That bone keeps it a little bit more juicy. It does take a little bit longer for it to cook, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, so now I'm going to sort of keep these separated a little bit. Very good. I'm going to put this to the side. Now remember, I've been touching raw chicken, so I want to go wash my hands again. Voila, we're back again. So now I've got here the chicken that I coated lightly with some flavored flours. And I've got a spray of olive oil, and I'm just going to give a little spray to each one of these. Not much, just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to put some of that cornmeal right on the top. And this is where you're going to get a little extra crispy crunchiness from. A little bit on the top of each one of these. Okay. Very good. Use all of it. And then just one little hit of salt over the top of each, and one little hit of pepper over the top of each. And these are ready to go into a preheated 400-degree oven. And it's going to take, depending on the size, about 20 or 25 minutes. And we're going to get a nice golden, crispy brown on the outside, and it's going to be nice and juicy. And that's because of the brine that we used and that yogurt marinade. So with editing, we'll come back and we'll see what this looks like and put it all together with our mashed potatoes and the glazed carrots. Hi, welcome back. Now we're going to make the mashed potato portion of our crispy chicken dinner. Now, do you remember that chicken stock that we made? Well, here it is, and it's kind of nice and thick. That's the gel that comes from the chicken stock. We're going to use that to cook the potatoes in. Additionally, we've got those little demi-glazes that we made. This is going to flavor the mashed potatoes a little bit later on. And we've got our pan. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about potatoes. I talked about them before, but I'm going to talk about them again for this particular purpose. These are white potatoes, just two different kinds of white potatoes. This is the one I'm using for this particular process. And these are just smaller. I like to cut these in half and roast these. They're yummy, delicious. This is a russet potato or an Idaho potato. You could use this as well, but because I'm going to keep the skin on, this skin's a little rough, where this skin is very thin, I'm going to use this one. And this is a red potato. You could use this one. I like this one as well. The only thing that's red is the skin, whereas the purple potato, the inside is purple as well. And you can use this if you really want that nice bright red skin color in your potatoes. But this one I'm going to use just these white potatoes here. Now I've got some potatoes cut up and I've got them sitting in water in order to make sure that the starch that's on them doesn't turn brown. And this is the good way to do that. And they're just cut up into little chunks. And notice I've left the skin on. I like it like that. You can peel them if you want, but in our family, we like our potatoes with the skin on. So in my pan, I've already got 2 cups of this chicken, beautiful rich chicken stock, and I'm going to add my potatoes to that. This is all at room temperature, and you want to start everything at room temperature. And the reason I have extra stock here is because I just want to add enough stock to completely cover the potatoes. And I wasn't sure if that was going to be 2 cups or 3 cups or 4 cups. And as it turns out, I need to add about another half of a cup or so. So this is 2.5 cups of this beautiful rich chicken stock. Now remember, it has no salt in it. We haven't salted our chicken stock. We add salt at the end. You never know how condensed that liquid is going to become. And when it becomes condensed, you also condense a salt flavor. So if you add salt later, you can control how salty it is. And you'll be surprised at just how little salt you tend to have to add. So now I'm going to put this on to boil, and I'm going to do something really interesting with this liquid. So don't strain it yet. I'm going to show you what to do. Welcome back. The next part of our crispy chicken dinner that we're going to make are going to be our glazed carrots. Now, these glazed carrots have a little bit of sweetness. Carrots themselves have a little bit of sweetness. So it's really nice because there's going to be some spice in the chicken as we marinated it in that yogurt mixture with a little bit of hot spicy sauce. So some sweetness will really augment the spiciness. Sweet and spicy go together. Sour and sweet go together. Salty and sweet go together too. So they're flavors that kind of go together. I've got some carrots that I've peeled already, and I've actually pre-cooked these in some boiling water for a couple minutes until they're just a little bit soft, because we're just going to put these into the saucepan for the glaze. Let's put this to the side for a minute and let me show you what the glaze is going to be. I've got just a little bit of honey for some sweetness, and this is probably about half of a teaspoon of honey, so not very much. And then I've got some orange juice. Now, you might think to yourself, orange juice, that's kind of ruby red. Well, this is what's called a blood orange. The only reason I'm using blood orange is, it just happened to be something that was on sale at the grocery store. I like the flavor, and I think the color is kind of interesting. And then I'm also going to use a little bit of the zest of the blood orange, and the zest is the coloring around the outside of citrus fruit. In another episode in my kitchen essentials, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this with the different citrus fruit and what you can use the zest for. So today I'm just going to show you a little bit about that. But this is a blood orange and half of a blood orange. And if you can see, look at the beautiful color that's on here. This is incredible. Tastes like an orange. It has a little bit more sweetness, but not like a sickeningly sugar sweet. It's got a different kind of a sweetness to it. And then I've taken off some of the zest from the outside of this particular orange. It's usually this color. And I've done it with something called a microplane or a zester. This is a microplane, and it's got these very fine sort of grids on it, and you just take it and brush it ever so slightly on the outside of your citrus fruit just to get the coloring off. You don't want to get down to that white part called the pith. That's very, very bitter. And then what you end up with is just this beautiful zest. This is what it looks like. Gorgeous zest. This is condensed flavor of an orange or a lemon or a lime or even a grapefruit. And it's also got those essential oils where much of the flavor of that particular citrus fruit is located. And then I'm going to get the juice of half of this, which is already right here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is at room temperature. I've already taken the zest off of this, and I'm going to take a fork and just put it inside and help it to squeeze. Now I'm not going to squeeze really hard, because what happens when you squeeze too hard is it gets all over you, and I'm wearing a white chef's coat, and I don't want it to get all stained with this red. So you can see lots and lots of juices coming out of this, and I'm just doing a light squeeze. There's probably about, I'd say another quarter of a cup left in this one, but I'm going to save this for later. And this is what we've got. Now I'm going to take my carrots and I'm going to put them into my pan, just straight out of the water. Okay, to this I'm going to add a little bit of cracked black pepper. I like to freshly crack my pepper. And some salt as well, just a little bit. You can control that. I'm going to add the juice of my blood orange. I am going to add this honey. Here we go. Just a little bit of the honey. Just enough for some sweetness. Kind of mix that in a little bit. Very good. And I'm going to add just a touch of this zest to give it a little bit more orange flavor. Now you're probably thinking, why would I want orange flavor on my carrot? Well, they kind of complement each other. So it's a good way to add a little extra depth of flavor to your carrots. I'm going to put these on the stove, let them heat up until this becomes a nice thick glaze and the carrots are covered in it, and then they'll be ready to serve. Okay, the potatoes have come to a boil, and they've been cooking long enough so that when you stick a fork in them, you can't actually pick up one of the potatoes. That means they're ready. I'm going to leave the broth in the pan, and I'm just going to take my potatoes and I'm going to put them into this great potato masher. I love this thing. You can do it by hand, it's up to you. And in that pan, I've got one of these great balls of chicken demi glaze. So all I'm going to do is open up my magic little potato masher. Okay. Take a straining spoon and put some potatoes in here. Okay. And then give this a nice little mash. There we go, just like that. Look at how easily they come through there. Perfectly creamy and delicious. I'm going to do this with all the rest of the potatoes. So by the process of editing, when we return, they'll be done. Voila! Our potatoes have all been nice and mashed, and I'm going to add a little bit of flavoring to them. In addition to that chicken flavor bomb that we made with the demi-glaze, I'm going to add just a little bit of homemade yogurt that we have, and give it a couple of twists of pepper and salt, and give this a nice little mash. Okay. Oh, very good. So creamy and so delicious. Now I promised you a nice thick chicken gravy for these. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Not with the potatoes, but do you remember all of that liquid that we used to cook the potatoes? Well, I'm reducing that down until it's nice and thick and it's a gravy. And the way I'm going to thicken it up, if it needs more thickening, is I'm going to add some of these mashed potatoes to it to give it a little bit of a thickness. So, again, through editing, once that's all done, I'll come back, I'll put it all together with our glazed carrots and our crispy chicken, and then we'll get a chance to taste everything and see how delicious it is. But while we're waiting, I'm going to taste these. Yum. Cooking them in the chicken adds all that beautiful, beautiful chicken flavor to it. So you get creaminess of the potatoes. It's just delicious. Okay, we're back. The chicken is out of the oven. The carrots have been glazed. Our mashed potatoes are on our plate. Our cooking liquid from the mashed potatoes has been reduced. It's nice and thick. If it's not quite thick enough, take a little bit of those mashed potatoes and use it as a thickening agent. Mashed potatoes are starchy, and starch thickens everything. And then I'm going to taste it, clean spoon in a sanitized water mixture. This is so rich in chicken flavor. It's almost like you're eating liquid chicken. It does need just a touch of salt, because remember, there's been no salt in this at all. So I'm going to just add a couple little pinches, not much. Really don't need very much. Give that another quick stir. And I'm not even going to taste it because I knew how much salt it needed. I recommend you taste it to the desired salt. And I'm going to take this beautiful broth and just put it onto my chicken. Oh, it's oozing all over the plate. Country gravy. I'm going to take one of these chicken breasts. Oh, they're hot. They're crispy. You can hear that crunch. That is so delicious. Put a couple of these on the plate because I know you're going to want to eat them. And here we go, is our delicious chicken, crispy chicken with glazed carrots and a country gravy on our chicken mashed potatoes. I hope you give this a try. Sure, it's not going to be exactly like that crispy chicken that you buy at your favorite to-go store in your area. However, this skin is still nice and crispy. The flavors that you've got from that brine are going to be great. And additionally, the other thing is it's going to be healthier for you. Now here's a question for you that I've actually gotten from some people. The question has been, how do you know if chicken is done? Well, there's two ways. This is a food thermometer. I can stick it in here and don't touch it to the bone, but get it close to the bone. And what I want is the reading internal temperature of that meat to be between 160 and 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Or a better test, if you don't have one of these, is to pierce the meat and watch some of the juices come out, and if they run clear. And what I mean by clear is you don't see any tinges of blood in your chicken, then it's done. You don't want to poke a big hole because you don't want to lose all those juices, because remember, it's the juiciness of this chicken that you really want from that brine. Now, this is my beautiful plate, but here's a piece of my lovely chicken that I'm going to take a bite out of. Wow. That is so good. That is so tender. It is so juicy. You get that crunch from the outside. That little bit of cornmeal really helps to add an extra crunch to it. And just enough salt from being in the brine. There's a little bit of heat from having the marinade, and it really ticks all those boxes. I hope you give it a try. This is going to be a healthier way for your family to enjoy a crispy chicken. Stay tuned for more episodes in the future. If you are interested in me healthifying one of your meals, just put it into the comments and I'll give it a try. Maybe the next episode is something that you've requested. Subscribe so that you're kept up to date on the latest episodes, which are released every Sunday at least, with extra content available during the week in Kitchen Essentials. Enjoy. Thank you for watching The Doctor is in Cooking with Kathy. I'm Dr. Kathy, the chef. See you next time.